Alright, it's February here in Japan. The New Year's resolutions have probably all failed by now, so it's time for your financial checkup. A financial checkup is just 10 quick things that you should be aware of if you're trying to get your finances in order at the moment. We've got inflation in Japan, prices are going up, salaries are not going up quite as much for most people. Money is getting tighter for a lot of people. So let's look at some ways that we might be able to, slim down the budget, save some money, and optimize our finances a bit more. Now, there is a PDF version of this video. You can find a link to that in the description. You might find that useful if you're going to work through the list later on as well. So the first thing, hugely important, we did a video about this recently, but emergency fund. Do you have an emergency fund? So emergency fund would be cash in a bank account that you have access to that would cover your living expenses for a few months. So the actual amount you need is going to depend on your situation. It's going to be different for each person, but at least kind of 2 or 3 months worth of living expenses in the bank in cash. If you don't have this, maybe it's time to get started. And the way to start an emergency fund is to open a bank account, a separate bank account, and just start putting money in there every month. And start with small amounts. Start with 5,000 yen a month, start with 10,000 yen a month, and just put it in there. And over time, try and increase that number until you hit your emergency fund number, which for most people is going to be 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses. Now, the second one is NISA. Do you have a NISA account? That'd be a Tsumidate NISA or an ordinary NISA. This is a tax-free investing account, and everyone who's over 18 that lives in Japan can open one of these. And it's probably the easiest and best way to start investing. We have a video about NISA and Tsumidate NISA. You can find those on the channel. The third one is iDeCo. Now, iDeCo is a kind of pension product. So if you're planning to stay in Japan, if you're here for the long term, getting an iDeCo account is a great idea if you're working and paying income tax, because it will reduce your income tax and also allow you to invest tax-free. We've got a video about iDeCo, check it out. The fourth category is insurance. So do you have the right insurance? So do you have the insurance that you need? For most people, this would be life insurance if you have dependents, if you have a family that's counting on you to provide for them. This would be car insurance if you drive. Bicycle insurance now is compulsory in most places in Japan, and a very good idea if you ride a bicycle. It often comes with lawyer support. So if you do get into an accident, you won't just be there on your own. You'll have a lawyer to back you up when you're negotiating with the other party. Now, the flip side of that is that a lot of times we have insurance that we don't need. So often we'll have things like whole life insurance, which has an investment component. That's generally not a good idea. It's better to have term life insurance and then invest the spare money yourself on the side. All right, number 5 is housing. So can you reduce your housing cost? If you're renting, you might be able to find a similar but cheaper place, or even a better but cheaper place. And it's worth keeping an eye on local listings, even if you are relatively happy with your own place. There might be somewhere much better just around the corner. If you own your home, one thing you can do is check mortgage rates. I talk to all sorts of people and they're still paying very high mortgage rates from maybe a decade ago. Whereas now mortgage rates are much more competitive. And it's fairly easy to remortgage. So if your mortgage is much higher than the current rates, I would look into remortgaging. One trick that avoids the paperwork that comes with remortgaging is that you can go to your current provider, your current bank, and say, hey, I'm going to switch to a different bank with a lower rate unless you can reduce my rate for me. And a lot of the time they'll do that. And then you can avoid all the paperwork and the hassle of switching. Number 6 is food. So obviously with prices going up the way they are, a A lot of people are struggling to pay their bills, and food is a big expense for a lot of people. So easy ways to save money on food is to eat out less, or to eat out in cheaper places, to cook your own food, and to buy local ingredients. So not necessarily buy the things that you're used to getting from home, but actually look into buying Japanese produce that's in season here. Batch cooking is amazing. So if you can make a big batch of food and eat that for like 3 days, that can save you all sorts of time and money there. Basically, being a bit smarter with how you approach food can save you a lot of money over the long run. Number 7 is transport. And again, transport is a high fee for a lot of people. This is things like owning a car or using public transport. For a lot of people, starting to use a bicycle can be a real time saver. That was huge for me. I got rid of my car a couple of years ago, haven't missed it since, and it's saved me over 1 million yen in the time since I've not had a car for the last couple of years. So definitely consider ways to cut down on your transport costs. Number 8 is mobile and internet costs. Now, hopefully most people know this, but the big legacy carriers are very expensive in Japan. That would be Docomo, SoftBank, and au. And often you can get the same service for much less money by going with a low-cost mobile carrier. So definitely worth looking into that. And internet as well. Often you can get plans where they're bundled and you can save money that way. So you can get your internet through your mobile phone carrier and get a reduction on that. Number 9 is utilities. And again, you can often bundle these with your mobile phone or your internet carrier and save money that way. Another way to save money is to look at different plans. So for electricity, for example, depending on when you use electricity, you can get a different plan with different prices. And that can sometimes save you money. So that might be worth looking into as well. Insulating your home can save you a huge amount of money. The easy way to do that, if you're renting and you don't really have control, is to just put bubble wrap on windows, put heavy curtains across doors, just heat certain rooms in the house, use kotatsus, dress warmly, all that kind of thing. If you own your house, then putting in inner windows, these are called in-plus windows in Japan, can make a huge difference to both sound and temperature. We did that a few years ago and it's been amazing ever since. I've got a blog post about that. That's a link again in the description. And number 10, the final one, is subscriptions. So if you're anything like me, you probably have hundreds of subscriptions that are just coming off your credit card or out of your bank account every year. And a lot of them you're probably not even using anymore. And so taking a day or two and just combing through your bank account statements and your credit card statements and finding these kind of dead subscriptions and cancelling them can again save you a lot of money every year. So how did you do? Did you ace our little quiz today? If you need help with any of this stuff, do come to the RetireJapan forum. It's a great place to ask questions and get advice from people all over Japan who've basically been through all this stuff already. Oh, and if you find this kind of content useful and you'd like to see more of it and you'd like to support the channel, please do subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.